Hi everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another recommendations video, and I'm really excited to be doing this one. This is a trope that is not always my favorite, but lately I've read some that were really good, and so then when that happens I go back through, my read books to see which other books fit into this trope. And I discovered that the last time I did a Friends to Lovers, it was like last year. And I was focusing on like childhood friends to lovers. So this time I'm not just focusing on childhood friends, although a lot of them, that ends up being how it happens. But there's some of them that they become friends just like within the book, and then it turns into lovers as well. So I'm going to start with, I have some historicals to share, and then I actually have some contemporaries, which I'm very excited about, and I'll share that when we get there. But before we do that, I just wanted to say that the Book Refuge here, I do recommendation videos, TBRs, wrap-ups, vlogs. About 3 to 4 times a week you'll see content from me. If that's something you would like more of and you'd like to be told when I upload, there was a fly, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you get notified. I try to upload like 4 times a week. So that really helps out. Give this a thumbs up if you like what I talk about, and let's dive into the recommendations, okay? So I have some goodies for the historicals of this. So we're going to start with a book that is going to be the November Rake Appreciation Society book. It is going to be our 1-year anniversary of that book club that I do with my friend Crystal, which is a historical book club that we do, historical romance. And one of our favorite historicals, as well as a book that kind of like we sort of bonded over, is The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne. So I don't want to completely spoil this if this is new to you. I mean, this book has been around quite a while, and I feel like 1.5 years, 2 years ago is when it really made its like rounds on Booktube as everyone hearing about it. And now I feel like more people know who Kerrigan Byrne is. But this is the first book in the Victorian Rebel series, and this is about Dorian Blackwell, who is the Black Heart of Ben Moore, and he's this ruthless villain. And then there's this heroine named Farah, and Farah Mackenzie, she works with the police currently, and Dorian Blackwell is like this criminal underboss, okay? He is the kingpin of London. He has his fingers in everything, and he is someone that the police department is trying to pin down. He also has connections to the man that Farah loved, who was Dugan Mackenzie, who she has called herself his widow for many years, even though she was never married to him. They were handfast, and he was put in prison, and he supposedly died in prison. The same prison that Dorian Blackwell went to. And so I think by me putting it in this category, you're kind of realizing how this might be connected, because I'm calling this a Friends to Lovers. That is the difficulty when you have a book that has the mystery like this, but also this book's been out for a while, so hopefully that maybe will convince you to read this. I love the Victorian Rebels. They are the first Kerrigan Byrne books that I read. Now I've read most of her backlist, except for her like paranormal stuff, and she also has some historical fiction that doesn't have a heavy romance plot. But anyway, that's not what we're about. This one is the first in a series. Pick it up. Rake Appreciation Society is going to be doing it in November for our 1-year anniversary episode, and I'm very excited about it. But I love the relationship in here, and it starts with a prologue. A lot of Kerrigan's books start with a prologue that will crush you into tiny bits, so you will get to see the friendship that I'm talking about and what happens to Farah, and then what happens to Dugan, and like what's all going on here. This is also Scottish. Also, the audiobooks are amazing, so there you go. Then I have a more recent read for me, and this is A Secret Love by Stephanie Lawrence. We got to step back for this one. Oh gosh, I love it. My cover is really weak on this one, so it's like I show it, but I'm like being really careful. This is book 5 in the Sinster series, and this one is about Gabriel Sinster and Lady Althea, and they have been friends for a long time. Althea really has a thing for Gabriel, and she somehow, but he only sees her as like this little girl still. He still sees her as that way. And so Althea has went undercover as this widow who always wears a veil so that she can have a rendezvous with Gabriel. And when Gabriel finds out who is under the veil, oh boy, does it get delightful. This is another series that the audiobook is really wonderful. They are all on Anyplay. They're also like on Scribd and stuff as well. So I highly recommend you check out this series. This one, it's so good. Then I have another author who's kind of like a throwback for me because I haven't read any of their books in a while, but I have The Seduction of Elliot McBride by Jennifer Ashley. This is a part of her Mackenzie McBride series. You can definitely read this one as a standalone. This is the first one that actually has a McBride, I think. Yes, the other ones were all previously Mackenzie ones, and then there's this one, and then it goes back to a Mackenzie. But a lot of people, I feel like, drop off when the Mackenzies are done, which I can understand because the Mackenzie men, they're wonderful. However, this little gem, I love how this book begins, and I love all the things that Jennifer Ashley touches in this book. So this is about, let me look up the heroine. This is about Juliana, and she is supposed to be getting married, and she gets jilted at her wedding. Now, Elliot McBride, who is a war veteran at this point with serious PTSD, I think he recently bought an estate, yeah, or he's restoring his half-ruined manor. That's what happens. But he happens to be at Juliana's wedding because he wanted to ruin her wedding. Not in like a mean way, but like he wanted to stop her wedding. But he saw how beautiful she was and she looked like she was happy. So he got really drunk and like fell asleep in one of the pews, like in a different area of the church. And when she gets jilted, she's running away and she happens to like sit on him. And she tells him what's happening and he's like, well, how about you marry me instead? Which is kind of what he wanted anyway, but he didn't know what he would be bringing to her. You know, this tormented hero. This was a girl that he saw as pure and beautiful when they were children before he went to war. You know, he was friends with her and her family, and he wanted her, but he doesn't think he deserves her. So when he gets this chance to kind of be the white knight and rescue her from being jilted, he's actually getting what he's always wanted, but he's also scared that he could be ruining her life by hitching herself to this tormented hero. But sweet baby. So there are trigger warnings for PTSD, you know, and the things that go with that for a soldier. And then I wanted to include one from my favorite historical romance series, but one that doesn't always get recommended because, you know, when it's a friends to lovers, there are other books in this series that get recommended, but I want to recommend It's in His Kiss by Julia Quinn. Yes, I have all the hardbacks of the originals. Here is Hyacinth and Gareth. I believe that's right. Yes. And I also love this because Gareth is the grandson of Lady Danbury, which just gives me so much joy. You have no idea. But Hyacinth, who is the youngest Bridgerton, she is kind of a companion to Lady Danbury, and she reads to her every day, and she reads these funny books to her. I think it's Mrs. Butterworth and the Mad Baron that she reads, because that's the book series that's usually mentioned in this series. And Gareth, his father hates him. His father causes him all kinds of trouble, and there's this mystery that has to do with Gareth's mother, as well as his like another, like going back a ways, a different relative, and he needs some things transcribed that are, I can't remember which language it's in. It might be, I'm not sure which language it is, but they end up kind of teaming up, and they have this friendship and this fun banter going on that turns to more, and Lady Danbury is only too happy to get her grandson hooked up with a Bridgerton. So I absolutely love this. This one is hilarious and funny. I laugh out loud. The mystery is pretty fun as well, and I love how these two fall in love. So now let's move on to some contemporaries, okay? So let's start with the two that kind of inspired me to make this, and then we'll do some that are kind of throwbacks. So The first one that inspired me to this is Broken Fighter by Maggie Cole. In case you don't know, Maggie Cole is going to be on my channel on August 31st or July 31st, and I am so excited for it to happen. It's going to be amazing. And anyway, this is the second book in her Mafia War series. All these books are kind of taking place at the same time, so you really can kind of start the series wherever you want. So if Perfect Stranger or Ruthless Stranger doesn't interest you, even though I don't know how it wouldn't, it's amazing. But this one is about Boris Ivanov and then Nora O'Malley. Yes. And she is part of the Irish Mafia and he is part of the Russian Mafia. So their families are acquaintances and he is friends with her brother as well as her. Like, they actually have a genuine friendship as well. And, you know, as well as this crazy chemistry. But the thing is, everyone is warning these people off of each other. So this one is a forbidden romance, even though they're friends. So I just thought there was so many cool layers to that because they're friends, but it is not anything that their families want for them to be together. Like, you're good enough to be our allies, but not good enough to marry our sister type of thing. But this book also has some fun twists in it. I don't want to spoil anything. There aren't really any serious triggers for this. Some past trauma for Boris. I mean, these are mafia, so they're bloody and all that, but they're sexy and delightful. So I wanted to recommend this one to you because I loved it so much. Then the other one that is also mafia, that is a friends to lovers, is Forgivable Sins by Adelaide Forrest. So this is book 2 in the Blondie crime syndicate, and I do recommend you read these ones in order, that you start with the first one with this one. Bloodied Hands is the first book. I actually have it right here, and it's really, really good. This one is my favorite in the series, as well as being a friends to lovers. So this one is about Lino and Samara. It's about Angelino, who is a part of the syndicate, and Samara, who has been best friends with Lino since they were children. She is Jewish, and Angelino's father, they're Italian, he is racist and a bigot and a lot of things. And when Lino was young, he kept himself distanced from her, even though he always wanted her for his own. He really did. Like, it's very clear in him. But he kept her at a distance because he knew that his father would hurt her if he showed more interest than friendship. And if he, you know, was saving himself for her, his father would have ruined things. He would have made things very difficult. So he kept himself apart. And by the time him and his cousin Matteo had enough power, had enough money that his father needed to shut up about it, it was too late. And she had already married someone else. So that all happens in the past. When we start this book, Samara is getting a divorce from her abusive husband. And Lino finds out about the abuses that she's been through and that he hasn't noticed them, and he is ready to make his move and make it happen for them. And the men in this series are so possessive and loving. It is absolutely beautiful, and I highly recommend you jump into it. Particularly Forgivable Sins. If you really don't want to, because I know it's difficult when you're like, you need to read this book that I don't like as much as, and I do like Bloodied Hands. But I think that for people, that hero will be more difficult to handle than Lino, who is just a dreamboat, and you will want him. So you could go to Forgivable Sins if you want, but I think if you'll want to read more in this series than just one book, you should probably start at the beginning and keep going. Okay, so another one that is a recent, that it kind of recently came out, I believe it was out this year, is Tie Me Down by Melanie Harlow. This is, I'm not going to remember the hero and heroine's name, I'm sorry, but this is a woman with a young son. She is getting a divorce from her husband, or has gotten a divorce, and she needs to come home to sell her family home, which is across the street from her best friend from childhood. And he has he stays with his father in his childhood home. His father has dementia, so there is trigger warnings for a parent who has dementia. It is difficult, as well as for someone who's being the carer of him. But the house that she's trying to sell is not safe for her and her son to stay in. So he's like, no, you're going to stay in our guest bedrooms, and then we will see about how we're going to sell this house and everything. And so this is a really beautiful one because it is the case of like, he always wanted to be the person who could be there for her. So he never fully made his move. Like, he made his intentions known in that way that you're like, dude, you should have been more forceful with what you felt. But at the same time, he never wanted to put himself out there, have her reject him, and then have her feel like she lost someone. So I can respect that, even though it like drove me crazy at the same time, right? It's one of those where like, I understand what you're trying to do, sir, but I don't like it. All right, so then I have a couple throwbacks for you. So I have Him by Sarina Bowen and Elle Kennedy. This is a male hockey romance. They were friends when they were young teens, and now they are just out of college, I think, the both of them. And one of them is straight and one of them has been living as gay since the time that they messed around when they were young. And then our Jamie is finally back in Wesley's life, and he's like, why did you abandon me? And he's like, because we made out that one time and gave each other hand jobs, and then I realized that I like men and I didn't want to pressure you. So this is Wes kind of having to own up to his feelings that he had, and it's Jamie having to decide, do I go for this or not, even though this is so different from something that I've done before. So this is delightful. It's pretty low angst, especially for one where one of the heroes starts the book as straight or believing that he's straight. Sometimes those can be too angsty for me, where I'm like, I don't always want to read about a hero who can't decide, even though that's realistic. When I'm reading a story, I don't want to always have to live through that. And I feel like they do a good job in this book of laying it out there. Then there is Jock Row by Sara Ney. This was a fun series that back when I had Audible Escape, like all of these books were on this. And this is the first one in the, I think it's Jock Hard the series or Jock Row the series. I'm not sure. I know there's a newer book out in this series and I haven't read it yet. But this first one was really cute because it starts with this girl is called like a cock block, because she is like keeping her friends from getting too drunk and getting with these guys, which sounds disgusting. It sounds like a bad beginning. But our hero, the parties always happen at his house. And so after they see her, you know, doing this one night, the next Friday when she shows up with her friends, he says, you're not allowed to come in because you're a cock block. And he says it to her and she's like, what? But he ends up sitting out there all night talking with her. And it becomes this thing that for the next like 5 Fridays in a row, she comes. She even brings a cooler with snacks the one time. And they sit out there because she's not allowed into the party, but she still goes every week. And so they end up having this friendship before anything ever happens between the two of them. And I just thought it was so cute. You know, it's not the next best, greatest thing that ever happened. But guess what? Books don't always have to be that. They don't. Sometimes they are just complete enjoyment and a fun time. And this had so many things starting out where I was like, is this going to work for me or is this going to be too much? And it was delightful. I really loved it. And then the last one I want to mention is a little bit taboo, and that is Sinner by Sierra Simone. This came up on a Goodreads list when I was looking for friends to lovers, and then I realized that it kind of is. It's one of those where it's like, experiment with me, because I only have a little bit of time left type of book. So we have our heroine who is going to become a nun. That's what she wants to become. And her mother superior and some of the other like encourages her to go experiment first so that she knows what she's giving up and won't be tempted by it later on. And so she ends up going to her friend who is known as a playboy and kind of a man whore and asks him to be her experiment buddy. The thing is, Number one, he's not religious himself. And number two, he actually really likes her. So he knows that he's in for pain because she's going to, you know, have sex with him and learn all these fun things. And then she's going to promise herself to God. And so though he wants to be the one to give her these experiences, it's a double-edged sword because he knows that at some point there will be an end to this. And then he has to give her to God and go home with his sad, lonely dick. So I didn't say that nicely, but yeah. So there you go. Those are some friends to lovers recommendations that run the gamut: historical romance, mafia, contemporary. Let me know some of your favorite friends to lovers. I have made one of these videos before. Hopefully I'll have it tagged up here somewhere. So yeah, and again, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more recommendations. Check out channel memberships if you'd like to see behind the scenes or spend more time with me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.